Welcome back, everybody, to Top Tier Studios. This is episode 7, and we are starting the brand new area to this park. There was a little gap last week, and that's really just because of a couple of things, actually. This ride really took a long time to make, and that's the reason why we have a little bit of a longer episode today. It's a little bit longer, but I couldn't cut it in half because it wouldn't make enough for one episode, but then putting it together is making it a little longer. So I'm cool with making it as one just because it's all for one ride, and I would rather get it all done in one episode rather than have multiple different episodes. So basically in this episode we are making it's called in-game a Horror Heights ride, and in real life it'd be more like the Hollywood Tower of Terror at Disney and all that, like that type of stuff. And it's a pretty simple ride to make in this game. It's not really crazy hard. It's just a lot of different scenery items, like levels that you have to kind of think about if you want it to all be themed. Like the Hollywood House of Terror, horror. Oh my gosh, the Hollywood Tower of Terror is like it's really just that main section, and then it's pretty much all dark except for that one part where it peeks out of the building. But other than that, it's pretty not really themed to that much. So this one, on the other hand, is going to be themed on every different stop. And that's really just because the ride doesn't bungee like in real life it would. So like an example of that, like bungeeing would be like going straight down and slingshotting back up, or going up and like using the compressed air to shoot it back down. So that's kind of the difference there. But instead, the ride on this stops on each level, so that kind of gives the opportunity to actually theme each level, and that's what we're going to do here in this episode. It's going to take a long time to do. You can see we actually just placed down the ride. We're actually just doing the exterior on the bottom right now. That's how long it's taken. We're already 2 minutes into the video, and we haven't gotten too much done. Now, there will be a bunch of cuts in this episode as well, and that's really because I have a couple of things as well. Some things didn't really stay, and also the triggered events that had to go on. It's kind of that tedious stuff that really, it's not make for a really good episode, I would say. It's more of that like not wanting to see, like this cue that we're making right here. I left it in because it was the only cue making that I did record, because I did change it off camera because it didn't look how I wanted it to look. You can see like the front even kind of looks not symmetrical, and you'll see that while we're making this kind of circular area that the plaza it's going to be in almost. But instead of being a plaza, it's just going to be a pond in the middle there. And yeah, so the entrance is actually going to be on a different side of the ride. We actually had to go into Scenario Editor because we are super close to the boundary of the park, and we had to use that to like our advantage almost. We had to use the Scenario Editor to actually utilize that area. And we are going to be working on the queue a little bit in this episode. Some of it did get cut out, like right there. That was cut there. Now the whole queue is pretty much done, and we're going to start working on the actual levels now. Before we can actually start those levels, though, there's a little bit of planning that we have to do, like what we're doing right now. We have the levels, like the flooring in for them already, but we have to put in all these elevator doors so it can actually act like different stops. And the reason for these elevator doors is basically when the car passes over the room, and that room is not the targeted room that it's going to stop on, I wanted it to be closed so that you don't get a peek of like what's to come or what's already happened. I want it to be a little bit like in a chronological order, if you would. So this very bottom one is going to be different than the rest, though. I did replace the bottom and the whole siding. Instead of being wood, it's actually concrete. And the reason for that is that this room is actually going to be more like a dungeon, or like that cellar kind of. So it's going to have all that creepy stuff. And we're actually going to start off first theming this room, even though this is like, I believe, the second to last room. So I guess the backstory for this, while we're kind of theming here, there's a little cut there because it kind of took me a long time to find these pieces for some reason. So we're just going to theme this before I talk about the backstory for this ride. It's going to be some skeletons sitting around, some rats, some cobwebs, all that good stuff, that creepy stuff. And then the rest should be creepy, but not like this type of creepy. So anyway, moving back to what I was saying, Oh wait, hold on. Before we do that, something that if I do find like off camera or something, I am gonna try and add to this is some spiders. I did not see any spiders while I was creating this, and that would actually really make this room because the cobwebs are basically just filling in the whole top area of this like room, I guess. So those spiders would actually fill in that area pretty nicely. So anyway, back to what I was gonna say. This backstory for this ride is basically it would be like King Ghoster's kind of mansion, I guess, and it would be you go through the first elevator to get to like the main hallway, I guess, and you're gonna go down the hallway, and then something's gonna happen, and the elevator that you're gonna get into the second time is gonna go crazy, and it's gonna take you to all the different levels. So it was gonna be like a house tour, but now it's gonna be a crazy, insane house tour and stuff like that. And it would be more of a King Ghoster if we were gonna theme that to like one of the people in the game, like one of the people that walk around. I don't remember what they're called right now. It's blanking my mind. It's okay. So yeah, it's one of those people, and it would be King Ghoster here. And this part, actually, this whole area is going to be more of a haunted area, but this is going to be like a standalone attraction. It's going to be off the beaten path from what we're going to be creating in the next couple of episodes, which is actually going to be the Ghostbusters area. I just wanted to kind of put the haunted theme kind of with it, because they kind of go hand in hand. Ghosts and like haunted stuff go together. So that's why we're going with this one first, because this is almost a standalone attraction. It's kind of stepping in for the middle ground there. But going back to what we did previously, so this is like the past couple of episodes, so like 6, 5, and 4, I believe. We were creating that double launching dueling coasters, and I do have a name for that now. We're gonna name it Chief Beef's Cops versus Robbers, and I was kind of hinting at that, and it's gonna be based off of Chief Beefs, and the story for that is basically you go in as the cop, and you're trying to chase this suspect, right? And then like while you're doing it, the cop gets actually framed for something, and then you're trying to escape jail, and the whole thing is flipped. So I think it just kind of fits better, the whole Chief Beef's Cops versus Robbers, instead of just like a different name. So that's what we're gonna go with for the double dueling launch coasters. The POV was in the last episode if you guys missed it, so you guys can definitely check that out if you want to. And also the end of this episode, there will be a POV of this ride. This ride is a little bit longer, and another thing that's weird about this ride is it only runs one train. That's contrary to like the Hollywood House of Terror, Tower of Terror, and they run multiple trains because they have different loading docks. This one only has one loading dock, so it can only run one train, and that's, I think, the big problem with this ride, and that's why the queue for this ride, you haven't seen it since I changed it, but it's really, really big, and we will theme it a little later on, but that'll be at the very end of the episode. Anyway, we have gotten a couple rooms out of the way. One of them was like a living room almost that we did, and that one was the original main floor, like this at the end of this hallway. That was the original, but then I had a better idea, so all I did was move it to a different level. And then this main floor now that we're working on, the hallway first, is basically just a bunch of windows and some lights that are gonna be triggered so they'll light up as the car passes through. And there's also going to be some speakers, and basically those speakers are going to be like hands down, stay in the vehicle, all that like safety stuff. And then the ones at the very end in the actual room that's going to be kind of crazed out and all that, those are going to be like I think it says "What do we have here?" but it's in like a super deep voice, and that's kind of what we're working on here. So I usually try and keep this stuff kind of cut out of the videos because it is more of the boring stuff, but this one was kind of just in the middle of things, and really how in the creation of making this, it took like 4 to 5 hours I would say to make this whole thing. It took a really long time just because of the triggered events. So basically the way I would do it is I would do a room, and then I would trigger, like I would make it triggered. That's why there's so many cuts in this. So when we reach the end of this like section right here, there will be a cut, and that's coming up in just a second. And basically after that, this whole area is going to be triggered, and then we're going to move on to the next area. So that room did get skipped, I believe, in the like actually as the creation, how I created it. So that room did get skipped, sadly, unless we go back to it. I don't remember in the specific order that I made it. But now we're working on the room above. It's a little bit higher. I think it's the second highest room that we have. And if you can't tell, we're trying to put down a bunch of food that doesn't really look right because the food in this game is humongous. So instead, we're just gonna go for like a creepy dining room. And the way I did this is I downloaded a TMTK chair. I think it's by Pixelated. Link will be in the description if you guys want to download it. Basically, it's a floating chair that'll float around the room. And I'm just like letting it run here to make sure that it's what I wanted. But the 3 chairs together is not gonna work with the space we have. So we're only gonna use one of the chairs in the very middle. But I really like how it works anyway. It's a really good piece. I really like it, and it kind of adds to that spooky effect. So yeah, but it doesn't really kind of fit in with the pieces. That's the only thing I will say. It looks a little bit too sleek, I guess. Like it was designed really well. But that's the pros and cons of it. But at the same time, it still works, I think. Anyway, that's what we're doing for this room. It's just going to be this dining room here, kind of creepy. But we did have some trouble selecting it. I think that was probably one of the biggest problems to this piece. I think it's the actual selection piece is somewhere in the ground, and it makes it really hard to actually move it, since it is an animated piece. But other than that, it really works really well in this area. And I think it kind of brings us... I think this room I was really struggling with to actually make it. But other than that, this room is done. And then the room above it, if you couldn't tell, I had to delete the walls and stuff, but we're going to put those in right here. The room above it is going to be like a lookout room. So this is actually going to be the roof, and it's going to be like looking out towards the park that is not there right now. And another room that I think might have got skipped over, I can't tell because, again, I did do it out of order. But I did have a library room. I think that is the last room that we're going to make. Either we haven't made it yet or we still have to. But that one is going to have a lot of triggered events. It's the second room after the hallway, and that one is going to be like a fireplace with a bunch of library shelves, like in books and stuff, and it's all gonna like catch on fire and all that. There's gonna be all that effects in it. So that's all the rooms that we made there. Sorry, some of them did get cut out, but that's really just because it was too much, and the video would be like 30 minutes long if I did allow everything to stay in. So I think I cut it out for the betterment of this video. Anyway, now we are moving on to a more building aspect. So this is actually going to be the exterior of the building. A lot of this building process did get cut out as well, just because it's just pretty much a big building, I guess. We'll be putting on some windows and stuff, but a lot of that did get cut out as well, because it's pretty repetitive, I would say. Like the roofing and all that, it's pretty repetitive. So I just kind of used the copy and paste tool a lot to get this done with as well, but some of it did get a little harder, like when it got to interacting with the ride, like what we're doing here, trying to make sure that it does look right. So that's all we're going to do here. There's going to be a cut in just a second again, and we're going to be moving on to another thing. Now, this is going to be the final part of this video here before we go to the final POV of it. You can see that the exterior of the building is pretty much done. We put in like a chimney, and we did some queue already with the queue covers, because since this is such a long queue, I really made sure that I did have enough queue covers for it. There's some custom lights in there for those queue covers and like the supports, and then we did put in the priority pass. The problem with this priority pass though is that it's super deep into the actual line. Tried to make it as close to like where I could as possible, like to the entrance. It just didn't work. So it's pretty deep, and I'm sure there will be some people with priority pass trying to get there. But basically, this backyard is going to be like a cemetery. That's the theme here. So as we work on that, it's pretty much the last part. Now the queue cover, like I had to go into the scenario editor just to make sure that I would have enough room for it. And actually the main reason why was is so I can make the terrain flat, so that the pathing wasn't crooked and all that. But here we are making the cemetery now. So this cemetery is kind of weird. It has that one featured grave, and then the rest of them are kind of like out there. So the queue actually goes and like interacts with it pretty well, and we put down some ravens as well, because this makes it really kind of really haunted-like, I guess you could say, because it's in almost every haunted house there is and stuff, like it has a graveyard. So we got those open graves, and then we have the closed graves, and then we have a vulture, and that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Pafu Rian Pientum ab Alutens. Ajabu Omaru.
Thou shalt follow.